Welcome to SVG-TV News for Thursday, April 25th, 2024. I'm Jennifer Richardson with the details. A two-day regional agriculture meeting is being hosted here in SVG under the theme Challenges and Responses to Agricultural Development in the Caribbean. The meeting is being hosted by the Ministry of Agriculture and Taiwan International Cooperation Development Fund, the ICDF. It attracts over 100 high-ranking officers, representatives and experts from regional countries, international organizations, and the Taiwan technical missions in Latin America and the Caribbean region. The forum, which is the first of its kind to be hosted by Taiwan and SVG, seeks to explore challenges in agricultural transformation in the Caribbean region and establish an intra-hemispheric trade platform. Speaking at the opening ceremony at the Beachcombers Hotel, Taiwan's ambassador to SVG, Her Excellency Fiona Fan, highlighted Taiwan's resilience and strategic importance on the global stage, noting that Taiwan is known for its innovative prowess and dynamic economy, which stands as a source of strength amidst the many geopolitical issues it faces.
Taiwan's semiconductor industry has been developed with an exceptional cluster and ecosystem. It produces 60% of the world's chips and 92% of the most advanced ones. We are expanding cooperation with other democracies in fields ranging from high precision manufacturing to artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and biotechnology. Aside from the innovative achievement, Taiwan is a country that upholds the value of democracy, respect for human rights, transparency, and the rule of law. Based on these shared values, Taiwan's role has been highlighted by like-minded countries as a respected development and humanitarian assistance partner to the international community. I'm pleased to share that on 11th April, Taiwan and United States signed the arrangement for technical cooperation in the Caribbean. This arrangement intends for greater cooperation on areas of mutual interest in Taiwan's diplomatic allies in the region.
Secretary General of Taiwan International Cooperation Development Fund, ICDF, Ambassador Charles Lee, who have worked in the Caribbean since the 1990s, said Taiwan, like the Caribbean, thinks agriculture is the backbone of the economy.
Since 1959, Taiwan began to extend our technical assistance to Vietnam first, then 2 years later to the African countries. So there's a long history for Taiwan to extend technical assistance to our diplomatic ally and friendly countries. So the Caribbean now has been one of our focus for our technical cooperation. We not only focus on agriculture, there are many other projects that we are conducting in the Caribbean. I think many of our representatives and participants today all share some part of our collaboration, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank every one of you and also our the government in the region, the organization, the aid agencies and NGOs. I'm sure through today's discussion and brainstorming, we can identify and explore more new projects for our.
In his address at the opening ceremony, Minister of Agriculture Saboto Caesar noted that the country is at the stage of its development trajectory, and while the forum, which seeks to establish an intra-hemispheric trade platform, is a moment to celebrate, it is also a moment to prepare and thank Taiwan and USAID for their assistance to SVG and other countries in the region in their agriculture thrust.
It is not by chance that the USDA is in the room with us today. Because when we speak about issues of hemispheric trading and our major market being the United States of America, the next question is what are the hurdles and the barriers? And tomorrow morning at 7:30, a technical team from the Ministry of Agriculture will be meeting with the USDA to address issues of how we can export mangoes, soursop, and golden apples to the United States of America. Thank you very much to the USDA for being here. When the history books are written, it must reflect that this meeting was a critical turning point in agriculture. And if I may borrow the words of Her Excellency, it is a pioneering initiative. USAID has been in the country over the past months, and they have been working with technicians in the ministry and also with stakeholders in the private sector. And all of this must be dovetailed into our work, our quest to reduce our food import bill in CARICOM by 25%. And the plan was to have this done by 2025. But of course, the achievements will be uneven, and we will have to relook the timelines. But I am comforted that with the government and people of Taiwan, the ICDF in the room, USDA, USAID, CADI and AICA and all the other organizations, that we will be in good stead.
Discussing agriculture and transformation during the first panel discussion at the forum was representative of the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, AICA, for the Eastern Caribbean states, Greg Rawlins. He told the gathering that when considering transformation in agriculture, they have to be prepared to make the necessary inputs in terms of resources and effort that will bring about significant change.
We need to establish why is it that we are saying we have these technologies out there that can increase productivity twofold, threefold, but farmers are not adopting. And I think Huey Sargent also pointed to the issue of culture and experience. So we need to really understand the parameters that are driving adoption, and we really need to address this issue if we're going to close that gap between the technologies that we know are available and what our farmers are adopting. So I believe this has to be a fundamental part of what we do moving forward. Obviously, the issue of accessibility is key in terms of being able to fund it, as well as the issue of upkeep. We sometimes invest in technologies, but then we can't maintain those technologies.
On the role of the private sector in financing investment in technology, Rawlins says with technology being seen as a public good, an environment has to be created to allow the private sector to play a more dynamic role in financing new technologies for the industry. In reference to talent cultivation, the AICA representative says the two go hand in hand.
We can have the best technology in the world without talented persons, it's not going to move. So we need to build problem solvers. This is our focus. I believe the presentations highlighted the importance of having people who are skilled, but we also need to have people who can solve problems. And therefore we need to sometimes create incentives and build systems that allow us to have people who can solve problems more effectively. We need to orient our agri-education programs towards the use of knowledge and accessible technology. And we need to enhance our vocational training programs to ensure we have more skilled people, not just university graduates, but people who offer tangible skills to ensure the increased productivity in the sector.
On strengthening the agriculture industry chains, Rawlins says they see the agri-industry chains as indispensable for ensuring that the talent and technology leads to transformation, and that on the integration for the agriculture transformation agenda, there are 4 starting points, the first of which is improving the policy and operating environment for business.
Secondly, the issue of private-public sector coordination and partnership. I don't think that we have the level of private sector engagement with our ministries and our public sector as we should have. I think this is an area that is lacking, and the private sector has to be the driver of economic activity. So we therefore need to build platforms that allow for much more greater public-private sector coordination. We have to do deliberate programs that foster the collaboration. We not just speak about it, but have people coming to work to forge the relationship with the private sector. And in this regard, I really want to point to, again, some industries that we've had in this region development that we have in this region that was based on public-private sector partnership. And in this regard, the government can play an important role in terms of offering public goods and facilities and infrastructure for the private sector to manage. There are also cases where the government can offer some services that traditionally offered by the public sector for the private sector to provide for greater efficiency. So there's a lot to be gained from the public-private sector coordination. And obviously value chain development for high economic utility commodities. Again, we need to keep the focus on selected commodities. We can't do everything. We need to be focused. And therefore, and I think this came out clearly in some of the presentations, we need to have those value chains that we assess, that we believe offer the greatest benefit to the country, that we are going to focus on moving forward. And the Taiwanese have done excellent work in a number of these value chains across the region. And we need to look at them and consolidate our work to advance them. And finally, the issue of knowledge and skill action in resources, building platforms for people to network, to share, not just across the region but beyond. I don't think in this region we've been sharing enough between persons in one country and the next. There are great examples of good work that is being done, but we need to build the platforms for that sharing and networking. And we have one such platform called the Caribbean Climate Responsive Agriculture Forum that we have available to help foster that kind of networking and joint action.
Tomorrow, Friday, April 26, the participants of the first Taiwan SVG Regional Agriculture Forum will be engaged in field visits, which will be guided by officers of the Taiwanese Technical Mission in Orange Hill. The forum is expected to serve as a highly successful platform that allows countries and international organizations to exchange experiences and foster capacity for the Caribbean region. Lawyer and politician Luke Brong wants to see changes made to the primary school curriculum to include more agriculture-related content. Brong, who was speaking on the ULP Speaks program this week, says agriculture is heavily emphasized to help propel economic growth, and it must be encouraged at all levels of the education system.
And the other things that you could add to the whole equation, and there was a discussion. Well, there was an initiative at this grammar school as well, where they introduced agricultural science to their curriculum. For some persons, that was almost a heresy, that there shouldn't be no agriculture at grammar school for whatever reason. But I thought that it represented an important step in the right direction as far as the decolonization, the further decolonization of our education system is concerned, because there are many changes that have to be made to the education system, and I'm going to actually write a paper in due course on some of those changes, some of the changes we require, because they are there's a vast array of possible changes so that we could get the best possible education system for our circumstances.
Brong noted that a foreign education system was put into place in St. Vincent and the Grenadines without any modification, which is needed now.
You know, there's this concept of the fact that when we became independent, we still practice certain habits that were associated with a condition of colonialism. You know, and it was a matter of our psychological dependence. There's a lot of political literature on it, which talks about the fact that we were stripped of responsibility and we were stripped of power for a long period of time. So it put us in a position of psychological dependence. It meant that we were looking abroad for what other people do and try to copy that without seeing how we could fit it to our circumstances. So it means that we brought a foreign political system and implanted it here without any amendment. We brought a foreign education system and implanted it here without any amendment. In fact, we even brought foreign ways of dress into our system here without any amendment. We're dressing in jacket and tie, which is appropriate for temperate countries, but which is probably something that is not ideal for a tropical climate. That is a graphic way of driving home the message of what exists in many other areas as well. You know, but that is another matter for another time when we could have a full discussion on it.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines today welcomed the Simon Bolivar vessel, which is currently docked at Port Kingstown. The vessel called the Ambassador Without Borders will be here for 5 days as the crew of 176, which include cadets from the Navy Military Academy, interface with the Vincentian public. Commander of the vessel, Captain Ronald Barricino Huerta, explains how important the 84-day tour of the Caribbean, including St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Unity as well as face, as well as a face, as a block, men and women ready with a staunch will.
Nuestro buque escuela
Trading ship is magnified. Is magnified by flying the flag of union.
La amistad y el cariño.
Friendship and the undying affection of our people.
Orgullosos.
We are proud to be the voices for the project of the great America.
Que nuestro sueño para todos nosotros.
That our hero, the liberator Simón Bolívar, always dreamed of for all of us.
Sin duda alguna, la satisfacción.
Without a doubt, the satisfaction, the pride of being sons and daughters of this land.
Addressing the audience, Deputy Prime Minister Montgomery Daniel says the vessel's visit to SVG signals the unwavering relationship with Venezuela. He outlines the many positive exchanges between the two countries, which he says has benefited all Vincentians.
From the country Venezuela, in the areas of scholarships.
En el campo de becas.
Our very first term, we would have had students
Y por primera vez que tuvimos
going to Venezuela
estudiantes que fueron a Venezuela
to do studies.
para estudiar.
This country also benefited
Este país beneficia también
from a housing program that generated much interest in this country up
del
until
programa de
today.
construcción que tenemos en este país y que lleva mucho interés.
It is where we started
Fue donde empezamos.
our no and low income housing program,
Las casas de ingreso bajo,
where a number of needy families benefited.
donde familias en necesidad.
In the farming community,
En la
a
comunidad,
number of farmers benefited
campesinos
through the Petro Alimentos program.
a través.
Also delivering remarks at the welcoming ceremony was Minister of Foreign Affairs Kisel Peters, who expressed gratitude for the long-standing relationship between SVG and Venezuela. The Simon Bolivar vessel was here in SVG 5 years ago.
Venezuela.
This underscored the evolving nature of our relations, emphasizing the deepening bonds between our countries. Thus, as we navigate the challenges of the 21st century, let us continue to enhance our bilateral relations through a cooperative approach at both regional and international levels. We can speak about our embassies and we often speak about the work of the ambassadors, but this vessel is undoubtedly, by virtue of what it represents, a symbol of good diplomacy and ambassadorship, and the commitment to our people-to-people exchanges, knowledge sharing and development in the maritime sector and national security.
Following the ceremony, cabinet members and other guests were given a tour of the vessel. The 43-year-old vessel opens to the general public every day for a tour from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. until Sunday, April 29th. The next stop for the vessel is Honduras. A Murray's Village man was shot and killed last evening at around 5:40 p.m. The deceased has been identified as Zenroy Lee, also known as Chucky. According to a police report, preliminary investigations indicate that while Lee was in the company of another individual, a gunman arrived on the scene and shot the 31-year-old vendor and footballer. In the Murray's Village community today, residents are still in disbelief as to what transpired and are angered at how the steady gun crimes are taking place. An elderly man told SVG-TV News that increasing the penalties is not stopping crime and more has to be done to deal with gun violence.
Plenty better than now. My days they didn't have gun, now all body didn't have gun. All body they were living good. You know, all the rest time going down, and when you do a crime, put you in jail for so much and so much a time, that can't solve the purpose. That will not solve the purpose. We sense which is penalty in Parliament, it ain't making sense. I don't think it making one sense.
Lee was well known in the community and the football fraternity.
You must fascinate, but you can do nothing with crime, because if he been trying to reduce crime would have cut down. He was a footballist with a national all thing. He didn't use to trouble nobody. Nobody didn't use to trouble. Lately, he used to stay right on the little table to sell anything. When the evening come, he sell the chicken, he sell the ring there for the evening.
Police say investigations are ongoing and they are diligently working to gather all relevant facts and to identify the perpetrators. Meanwhile, a few hours later, it was raining bullets in the Trigger Ridge area of Redemption Shops, where the suspect in the Murray's Village shooting was reportedly shot and killed by the police. The deceased, 35-year-old Romano Pompey, was reportedly shot by the police at around 8:50 p.m. while in an abandoned house. According to a police report, Pompey pointed a firearm at the police, posing an immediate threat to the officers, which resulted in him being fatally shot. Today, SVG-TV News spoke with the aunt and a female cousin of Pompey, who lives just below the abandoned house where he was killed. The women who spoke off camera said it was as though they were in a war zone as screams echoed from various homes nearby while children scampered for safety.
And I'm inside covering my ears and bullet just dropping on the house. It was like a nightmare.
2 shots so. And then after the 2, it was multiple. And after it was like empty and reload and empty and reload. And everybody was screaming and they wasn't stopping. But my mom and my aunt was screaming. My aunt even screamed walking going up there and they wasn't stopping.
Because of the distance from the my house and the abandoned house, I heard all the shots. And I ran in my house and covered my ears. When I took off my hand from my ears to see if it stopped, all the bullet or shells were just hitting on the roof. I took my children and I lied down on the ground in the house with them because we were so scared.
And at the time, did you know it was him?
Yeah, I know it was him. Because he came up earlier and I told him I don't want him around me with his drama. And he is the only reason why the police would come up here. Because people were saying that, I overheard people saying that it was him who shot the guy. And he came up and I run him. I feel kind of guilty that I run him, but I didn't want him around me. And my children, I told him that. And I went back in and I locked my door from him. And then a while after I hear all the shots them, I came out to see. I came out right in the porch there. And I ran back in and I screaming and covering my ears.
Well, I'm sorry again. Well, I just hope that you all cope and as you say, you know.
I like to say.
Police say a Glock 23 pistol and 13 rounds of ammunition were recovered from the deceased and that no police officers were injured in the incident. Meanwhile, Aunt of Pompey said her nephew was unstable as he exhibited mental problems often when triggered. She said this happened while he was in prison as he was behind bars for 13 years for murder and was only released 2 years ago.
He had a mental problem because he was in prison for a while, and while he was in prison he had escaped sometime during that time, and he came up here. He is like up here is home to him. Wherever he is, he always end back up here because up here is home to him. And he had a mental problem, but I don't know what transpired yesterday that caused him to act in that way. I don't know anything about that. He came out of prison about 2 years now. And he was living up here, and then he left, and I don't know where he was living after that. But sometimes he would just show up, you know, because as I say, he is home. His mom died when he was about 3-4 years old. She was murdered out Qualacua behind the school, Anglican school. That was a long time ago. So he doesn't really have a mother, but he clings to me because I'm his mother figure. I don't know what led him to do that. If it was him, I don't know what led him to do that. I just don't know. I don't know. Because he was good yesterday, because he was in town up and down, and he was jolly. yesterday morning, so I don't understand what led to all this. I just don't understand.
The family members say they are still shaken by the shooting incident and would need counseling, especially for the children, and they sympathize with the family of Zenroy Lee, who was killed in Murray's Village earlier.
Condolences to the other family who lost their loved ones. It is not easy to lose the loved ones I've lost, about 3 or 4 of them. And I know the feeling, and I just like to send my condolences to the family. My daughter went to school, but I sent her back home because she was just crying. She had to go and see the counselor. I think I need a counselor too. I don't know. Because I have my other son there. He's not even speaking. He didn't sleep. His eyes are red. He's not sleeping. He's not eating. He's just, I don't know, he's just in there. Because it's like last night, every time I try to sleep and like I doze off, I hear bullets in my head. And then I jump up. And she wouldn't sleep in her bed. She kept lying on my chest, and every time I tried to turn to put her straight, she woke up. She didn't even sleep. Even in the bath to bathe her skin, she wants somebody to come with her. She went to school and she's not functioning. Just the bullets that keep replaying in my head. All those bullets just hitting on the roof and replaying in my head. It's like in a war movie.
The police in their report say the incident is under investigation by the appropriate authorities to ensure all actions taken were in accordance with law enforcement standards. The Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force, the SVG-TV, says it is also investigating the circumstances surrounding the discovery of a partially decomposed body of a male at about 3 p.m. on Wednesday, April 24, 2024, at his residence in Argyle. A news release from the police says officers from the Bible police station received the report and responded to it, where they met the man lying naked on his back. The deceased was later identified by a relative to be that of Ernest Marshall, a retiree over the age of 60. The police say it was reported that his daughter called him about 2:30 p.m. that same day, but he did not respond. She later sent someone to check on him, which led to the discovery. The body was pronounced dead on the scene by Dr. Michael Mako, and Magistrate Colin John authorized the removal of the body. A post-mortem examination is expected to be conducted to determine the cause of death. The SVG-TV says it is diligently continuing the investigation and is asking anyone with information to contact police emergency at 999 or 911, the Calico Police Station at 784-458-4200, or the Stubbs Police Station at 784-458-4210. During this challenging time, the SVG-TV expresses its deepest sympathies to the family of the deceased. The Government Information Technology Services Division is encouraging persons to segregate their emails as update antivirus and operating system on their electronic devices. During the COP chat program on WeFM this week, representative of the ITSD, Dighton Adams, says spamming and scamming are very popular, and that when it comes to passwords, people should make them complex to make it more difficult for cyber criminals to crack.
Just having your letters and numbers, you want to also include capital letters and symbols or special characters. Mm-hmm. And another thing with passwords, you don't want to use a password with your name, your date of birth, your spouse's name, or even nickname or location. You want to use something that is not something that can't be identified with you. So a popular phrase, your favorite movie. You know, you might spell your favorite movie backwards, and then you mix that with some, letters, capital letters, numbers. Rather than make your letter A, you might make it the E symbol. The E, you might make that a tree, something like that. So you want to make it complex, and you could use phrases. So password could be like a phrase. The I love you. You switch that backwards. I know that's a problem we have in the government service. Users complain that They're changing, we're changing passwords frequent. We have to do that because it's important that whoever is out there trying to get access to your account, they don't get in. So you have to constantly change the password. Just as how we constantly update the system, the application, the OS, the hardware, you have to constantly update also your passwords.
Adams was further questioned on how to ensure that an email received is secure and how to determine whether something is wrong with the correspondence. He said people need to be aware of the subject matter of the email as well as the domain from which it is coming.
Some email systems would show you the name. So there's a difference between the name and the email, right? The email system that we use, in the past, users would just see the name where the email is coming from. But you want to also take note of the email address. Now, if you're receiving an email from the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, pay close attention to the domain. Our domain is gov.vc. So you should not accept any email that is not coming from gov.vc. So if it comes from something that says Gmail, Hotmail, can't be government.
Corporal of Police Alias Stapleton is also advising elderly persons to refrain from clicking on things they are unfamiliar with to avoid falling victim to online scams.
Especially with elder persons, when you hear anything about IT, they shy away from it. But you're using something, and the same how you safeguard yourself right now, physically, it's the same thing you have to do online. So we're asking you not to click on anything. I mean, you have owned a number for how much years since digital came out and be selling codes, own a number, and somebody call you and say, look, I've owned this number and it's tied to my email addresses. And because I've lost this number, I need you to send a code to your phone. Can you relay the code to me? And then you lose control over your platforms. You understand? So just don't go ahead and be trusting, too trusting. Stop clicking. Stop the clicking mentality. You understand? Ask questions sometimes.